The hall functioned the way an ancient machine dreams it still does. Perfectly, insistently, and with no interest in exceptions. Light flowed in measured bands across the floor, reacting to status signatures rather than footsteps, which meant that when she arrived, the illumination hesitated, dimmed, then continued as if nothing had happened. This was normal. Normal had learned to pretend she was not there. Around her, voices layered themselves in hundreds of frequencies. Clicked consonants, harmonic pulses, subsonic declarations of dominance, translated instantly into a polite, neutral register that drained all passion from them. Decrees were issued. Objections were raised. Entire star systems were reassigned ownership with the emotional weight of moving a comma. She listened, because listening was one of the few things no protocol could confiscate. A drone drifted too close and stopped abruptly, recalculating space. "Apologies," it chimed, rotating in confusion. Unexpected density detected. It backed away, embarrassed, then repeated the same mistake 30 seconds later. She smiled faintly. Being classified as a statistical error had its entertainment value. Her presence was logged, archived, announced by the hall's central intelligence, in a voice that suggested trumpets and destiny. The announcement echoed. No one reacted. A six-limbed delegate beside her applauded the wrong speech, then froze, unsure why it had started clapping at all. That, too, happened often. The assembly thrived on hierarchy. Authority here was not argued. It was inherited, measured in sequences older than most stars. Recognition was automatic, unconscious, merciless. If the hall decided you did not matter, even your enemies forgot to hate you. She had once mattered very much. Now she existed in the narrow gap between registered and acknowledged, like a word everyone knew but no longer used. When the human arrived late, because humans were apparently proud of being late, the disturbance was immediate and strangely refreshing. His access badge flickered between clearance levels as if undecided. He paused, looking up at the vast chamber, and muttered something about over-designed furniture for egos, which earned him several scandalized glances and one appreciative trill from an amphibious delegate. He took his seat, adjusted the translation field, and leaned forward, studying the room the way one studies a puzzle rather than a threat. His gaze passed over her once, twice, and then stopped. Not slid away, not blurred, stopped. "That's odd," he said mildly, aloud, into a hall that preferred mild thoughts to remain internal. "You've been here the whole time, haven't you?" Several systems stuttered. The light above her seat brightened by a fraction, as if surprised by its own honesty. She turned toward him, raising an eyebrow. "Longer than you," she replied, dry as vacuum. Somewhere deep in the hall, an ancient algorithm began to question assumptions it had not reviewed in centuries. The station rotated on 3 axes it did not technically need, but tradition had voted for complexity centuries ago, and no one had managed to repeal it. Inside one of its smaller chambers, A meeting was underway that had not been authorized by any council, which was precisely why it was productive. She arrived early, which meant she arrived unnoticed. Chairs adjusted themselves for bodies they believed important. Hers remained stubbornly generic. She sat anyway. The chair sighed, as if offended by the effort. Across the table, a being composed largely of vapor attempted to project confidence. "Your request is irregular," it said, its voice emerging from a bracelet rather than a mouth. "Your status classification suggests this meeting should not be possible." "And yet," she replied, folding her hands, "here we are. History is full of administrative errors. Some of them become empires." The vapor being pulsed in irritation. "You lack verified lineage authorization." "I misplaced it," she said. "Terrible habit. Lost a civilization the same way once." Before the vapor could decide whether that was a joke, the door slid open with unnecessary drama. The human entered carrying a data slate, a cup of something steaming, and the relaxed confidence of a species that assumed rooms would adapt to them eventually. "Good news," he said cheerfully. "According to the station's archives, this meeting doesn't exist." "Bad news. The coffee machine does, and it's offended by my life choices." He sat without waiting for permission. The vapor recoiled slightly. "You are not scheduled," it snapped. "Neither is truth," the human replied. "Yet it keeps showing up." She watched the exchange with faint amusement. The room's sensors struggled. They tracked the human perfectly. They tracked the vapor with reverence. They hesitated on her, blinking like tired eyes. The vapor addressed the human. "This entity has no recognized authority." The human glanced at her. "That so?" "No," she said calmly. "I have authority. Recognition is what's missing. Common confusion." The vapor emitted a static sound that might have been laughter or system failure. "Authority without recognition is meaningless." She leaned back. "Only if you believe power comes from being agreed with." The station shuddered slightly, as if clearing its throat. Somewhere, an ancient subroutine began running comparative analysis between confidence and code. The lights flickered, then stabilized, embarrassed. The human grinned. "I like her." "You are irrelevant," the vapor said. The human nodded. "That's what they said about gravity once. Turned out it was just very patient." She stood. The chair did not protest this time. "Meeting adjourned," she said pleasantly. "You'll forget this happened. He won't. And I won't need you to remember." As they left, the vapor realized too late that the room had recalibrated its hierarchy. Not permanently, not yet, but enough to make forgetting uncomfortable. Humor, it turned out, was not a bug in the system. It was a warning. The alert arrived as a courtesy, which meant it was already too late. She received it while recalibrating a public terminal that insisted she did not exist. The message politely informed her that a procedural review of her non-status would commence immediately and that her cooperation was neither required nor expected. She laughed once, softly. "Progress," she said, to no one in particular. The chamber filled anyway. Representatives phased in, patched through, unfolded, or simply appeared, each bringing the confidence of a system convinced it was about to correct an error. The human arrived last, chewing something he definitely was not supposed to have brought past security. "I was told there would be consequences," he said, swallowing. "This feels like an intervention." One of the delegates spoke, its voice harmonized by committee. "This assembly has detected anomalous acknowledgement patterns centered on you," it said to her. "This should not be possible." "And yet," she replied, "here we are again. I'm starting to feel popular." A ripple of discomfort passed through the room. Systems adjusted. Rankings flickered, briefly placing her above several long-established authorities before snapping back, embarrassed by the lapse. A few delegates stared at their displays as if personally betrayed. The human raised a hand. "Just to clarify, is this the part where you tell her she doesn't exist, or the part where reality refuses to agree?" "You are not relevant to this process," the delegate snapped. "Story of my species," he said. "We keep surviving it." They turned back to her. "You lack the markers required for recognition." She nodded. "You removed them, quite thoroughly. I'll give you credit for efficiency." "That was necessary," another voice said. "Your kind destabilized the balance." She smiled. "No, we revealed it." A warning tone sounded. Somewhere deep in the structure, automated protocols began running stress tests they had not used since the last civil collapse. The room dimmed slightly, as if lowering its voice. The human leaned closer to her. "They look nervous." "They should," she said. "They've built a universe that only works if no one remembers who built it first." The lead delegate straightened. "This assembly will not acknowledge fabricated authority." She stood. The room did not object. That was new. "Then don't acknowledge it," she said. "Observe it." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a junior envoy, small, gelatinous, easily overlooked, looked directly at her and spoke her old formal address without realizing what it was. The words landed like a drop-up instrument. Systems froze. Hierarchies recalculated. The alert tone gave up and shut itself off. The human blinked. "Wow," he said. "You really can't unring that bell." The delegates argued, loudly now, protocol colliding with perception. Some demanded rollback. Others demanded explanations. A few simply stared at her, seeing her for the first time and finding the experience deeply inconvenient. She remained still. Power did not need movement. Recognition was spreading on its own, awkward and irreversible. "Well," the human said, standing beside her, "if this turns into a rebellion, I want it on record that I was polite." She glanced at him. "You spoke." He grinned. "Humans do that. It's how we break things." The chamber lights stabilized into a new configuration, uncertain but real. The assembly had not fallen. but it was no longer sure who it was ignoring. The hall no longer pretended she was furniture. It tried at first, out of habit. Lights hesitated. Systems suggested alternative focal points. Agendas ordered themselves with passive-aggressive efficiency. None of it worked. Recognition, once loose, behaved like a rumor with a grudge. She walked to the central floor without announcement. No alarms sounded. No protocols objected. A few delegates flinched as if the universe had cleared its throat behind them. Others nodded, uncertain why they were doing it, but unwilling to stop. Growth, she had learned, often looked like confusion, wearing better posture. The human kept pace beside her, hands in his pockets, whistling softly. "You know," he said, "for a civilization that mastered faster than light travel, they really struggle with eye contact." "They optimized for inheritance, not courage," she replied. "Different skill set." A counselor intercepted them, visibly recalculating tone. "The assembly wishes to formalize your position." She considered this. Once, she would have accepted instantly. Once, she would have demanded restitution. Now, she smiled, small and deliberate. "I'm not here to be formalized. I'm here to be remembered." The counselor hesitated. "That may destabilize and—" "Yes," she said. "That's the point." Laughter rippled unexpectedly from several species, surprised by themselves. Humor had become contagious. Authority systems attempted to suppress it, failed, and quietly logged the failure as a learning experience. Later, after votes that felt more like apologies, after archives reopened and corrected themselves with visible embarrassment, she stood alone for a moment at the edge of the hall. She felt lighter, not powerful in the old way, but present. The difference mattered. The human joined her, offering a cup of something illegal in at least 3 sectors. "So," he said, "ruler of forgotten things, breaker of algorithms, how does it feel?" She took the cup, "Like I no longer have to knock." He grinned. "Careful. That's how revolutions start." "Good," she said. "This one can start with conversation." Across the hall, new delegates took seats without knowing exactly why the layout had changed. The system adjusted around them, more flexible now, less certain of its own infallibility. That uncertainty felt healthy. She had not reclaimed an empire. She had reclaimed herself, seen, spoken to, answered. The hall would remember this moment, not as a collapse, but as an update. And somewhere deep in its core, an ancient machine finally learned that legitimacy did not come from being obeyed. It came from being acknowledged.